All right. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cassidy Theater and Company. My name's Katie Flanagan, and I am on the board at Cassidy Theater. So thank you so much for your ongoing support throughout this entire time. And we're really, really excited for a great group that we'll have. And before I bring them on the screen here with me, I'll just provide a couple reminders before we get started. So first off, you see scrolling across the bottom here. If you enjoy our conversation today and you feel willing to donate, please go to CassidyTheater.com and click Make a Contribution. Every little bit helps, or your time and your talent, such as the folks that will be on the screen with me here. And then secondly, so our guests will have the opportunity to answer some of your questions, or if you feel like you want to add any comments to the conversation, you can do that by chatting in the live bar that's on the side of the screen. And your comments might be featured on our live stream today. So without further ado, let me get everyone on the screen here. All right, here we are. Welcome, welcome. So we have Cory Mach, Sean Patrick, and Kate Michalski, who were all involved in some way, shape, or form with our youth theater and teen-related programs. So I'll let the three of you kind of go around and just say a little bit about yourselves and how you were involved specifically with Cassidy's program. We'll start with Cory since he's in the top corner there.
Cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Cory Mach. I'm an actor now in New York City. I moved here about 10 years ago from Ohio. And I grew up doing shows at Cassidy kind of my whole childhood. I started in 94, so I guess I was 8 or so, 7. First grade, with actually Kate and I played 2 parts of a triplet. We were like triplets.
Triplet baby dolls.
Baby dolls, yeah. And her dad wrote this show, and I think my mom saw a clipping in the paper saying that, you know, there are auditions for this Christmas show, this like original Christmas show, and you know, the theater was like 20 minutes away. I think my mom kind of grew up seeing shows there, and she took me. I was super willing and really excited to go, and I got this role in this little musical, and that was kind of the beginning for me. And I ended up just doing show after show after show after class after class after show there, that I eventually ended up directing there and kind of helping the director of the youth theater with her thing. But yeah, by the time I was in high school, I had probably done maybe like 100 shows there.
Wow.
I'd say close to 100 is pretty accurate.
I think so.
I might even be lowballing. Yeah, it was crazy. I was doing like just a dozen shows a year or something. It was crazy. And that 20-minute ride from Strongsville, we knew it very well. I probably could have driven that before I had my license, just because it was like, I knew it. I knew every light. I knew every, you know, mile per hour marking. It was just like part of my life. And yeah, that's kind of my Cassidy history in a nutshell.
Oh, where it all began.
Where it all began.
Sean?
Hey, my name is Sean Patrick. I am a professional stage manager now. I grew up in Cleveland, which is actually where I am right now, heading back to New York City tomorrow morning for the first time in 3.5 months. So that'll be fun. I had a slightly different Cassidy experience than Cory. I grew up as an actor also, but I didn't actually get a chance to work at Cassidy until I was probably in my late 20s. I music directed a production of Children of Eden, which was the first show, I think, Cory, that you directed for the teen program at Cassidy, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it was
the only show.
Okay, it was the only show. So the first and the only. That was exciting.
No,
Yeah.
you didn't.
No, I didn't direct Children of Eden. Did I direct Children of Eden? No,
I-
Sarah did.
Aaron did.
Aaron did. Yeah.
You directed Into
What
the
did I
Woods.
do for Children
Into
of
the
Eden?
Woods.
What did I do? I
Children
knew
of
I was
Eden?
there for Children of Eden, but
You
maybe I
beautifully
was
directed.
Oh,
Both
you
of
were.
you.
That's what I thought. I thought I did that. What did you do for that show? Oh, Sean, you did the orchestra. You conducted.
I'm sorry. You're right. It was Into the Woods that you did that I music directed. Sorry.
I was like, my whole childhood was a sham.
We've been lying for all these years.
I've been lying to
We don't even
myself.
do theater. This is all a joke.
No, I work at McDonald's actually. Okay,
So
now we got that straight. I'm sorry.
Now we're good.
For
Okay,
it.
so I music directed Into the Woods that Cory directed, and I music directed Children of Eden, which you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, he did not direct. Sorry. And then I music directed Anything Goes on the main stage, directed by Kristen Nett's band. But growing up, I got to see a ton of shows at the Greenbrier Theater, then became Cassidy, and I remember being very confused the first time because I didn't know there was a name change. I just pulled up and I went, they moved the theater, it's gone. My mom was like, no, they just, it's a different name. But yeah, so it was a great opportunity for me to finally get to work at a theater that I had grown up seeing shows at a lot. And it was really fun to finally get a chance to kind of dive in and work with some live music there, which I really love doing as a side hobby when I'm not stage managing.
Fantastic. Hey.
I guess I'll go. I grew up at Cassidy as well because my parents met there. Right around when the theater first opened, they did a production of Oliver, and my dad was Mr. Bumble, and my mom was in the ensemble. And so they worked there my whole life. I've worked there my whole life. My first show was with Cory. I made a show my dad directed and wrote that I got to direct a couple years ago, which was really cool. And yeah, did so many shows there growing up. Youth theater wise, I didn't do a whole lot, but I ended up assisting teachers when I was a teenager and did a lot of teaching and directing with the youth theater. And then, of course, Into the Woods and Children of Eden when we did the teen productions, which were just wonderful experiences all around. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the program like whenever the three of you were involved with it? Like what kind of stood out as something that you enjoyed most about it?
Yeah, it's weird because I don't really think about it much. It's kind of when you grow up with something, it just becomes part of your being. And I'm not usually one to like reminisce on like past things, But actually, right before I was doing this, I was kind of thinking about some of these questions, and I was like, I think I kind of underestimated how much that teen program had an effect on me because, growing up and doing the shows, I was always just an actor, whether I was in the ensemble or I was a lead one time or whatever they needed me for in an acting scenario. But, as a core group of us who are around the same age were growing up, and I think we showed really like an extra want to be a part of like the more like the decision making process. Diana Colgren completely trusted me and a few others to kind of start making our own decisions and to trust my talents behind the scenes as well, so that I ended up having a say in what was produced and what role I'd like to have in the show itself. And I think this really led me to believe that I could make and produce my own work. And it gave me the confidence to make decisions that could be wrong and could be right and could be challenging for myself and others around me. And so within a few years of moving to New York, I started my own business, which is a concert series, which I think looks back on the Cassidy days and how I was allowed to create my own content and have a say in it, So I think that teen program, when Diana started realizing that these 15, 16, 17-year-olds could have a say in what was produced, I think that made her life easier, honestly, because she was juggling everything. And not being compensated well enough for it. She was doing so much work. Is that me making that noise?
I'm not sure.
You hear that? Does anyone else hear that, or are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it.
Yeah. If you just want to mute your mic when you're not talking, there we go. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So she was amazing. She was a godsend, and she was my mentor and still is for all of grade school, all of high school. And I think that teen program was like the thing that stood out to me the most. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Did Sean or Kate, did you have this kind of mentorship feeling as well when you were starting out in theater? Oh, we lost Kate here.
Just your audio, Kate. We see you. One thing I can say while she's fixing her headset is one of the things that impressed me, and Cory supported this, which I thought was awesome, was the fact that live music was never a thing that was an afterthought, which I thought was really impressive for youth theater. I think too many youth theaters just inherently say, here's a piano and that's all you get, or here's some tracks, here's what you get. It was nice to see that they were super supportive of having, and we had full orchestras for all three of the shows I did there, which was nice. It was nice to actually have, I mean, for Children of Eden, we had, I think, like 7 pieces, and for Into the Woods, we had 14 pieces. So it was nice to see that. It was a really different vibe for a youth theater show, and it really elevated the production, which I thought was really, really exciting.
Yeah, it was almost as if we just got the go, like the adults were just saying, go, like, go, do it. What do you want to do? Go, you know? I think that's rare to trust a group of teenagers to like put on the show, but you know, we loved it. You know, we loved it. I think that adults should now, if you're an adult in the theater community, especially community theater, like hand it over to the kids once in a while, because not only may the end result be amazing, but they'll learn so much more being a part of the behind the scenes than maybe they would on stage, you know?
Right.
And maybe they'll discover something that they didn't know that they had in them to lead or to produce or to, you know, help cast or, yeah.
Yeah, I think having that responsibility is definitely really important to be able to know what other options beyond just acting or directing are available in the theater. Absolutely. All right. Kate, maybe? Uh-oh. Still having trouble hearing you. We'll try some different headphones, or you can unplug in the meantime, see if that helps, Kate. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so with Sean, you started off talking about being on the music directing side, but now you're doing stage management and production management. How did you decide to make that pivot?
You know, it's weird. I went to school for musical theater performance. I went to college for musical theater performance. Had always been a performer growing up in Cleveland, and moved to New York. I had been an actor at Great Lakes Theater, several shows off and on over the years. And then I moved to New York in 2008. And I remember just auditioning, and I got a call from a friend of ours who's local to Cleveland, actually, from Mercury Theater Company, Brian Marshall, who said, hey, I'm doing this production of Titanic at Virginia Musical Theater. We need a stage manager. Now, I had stage managed a few things in Cleveland, but nothing huge per se. I did a show at Kane Park, but I hadn't done anything at any of the equity houses here. He said, would you like to come do that? And I said, sure, let's do that. It was just kind of a side interest that I had taken right before I moved to New York. So I moved down to Virginia, did that. They asked me to stay on and do the next show, so I did that. I popped home to Cleveland for like a week just to visit family, and one of the production stage managers at Great Lakes Theater had just retired or just decided to pivot to a totally different career. And so the other PSM reached out to me and said, hey, would you ever want to consider coming here to do that? So I said, sure. And within 48 hours, I had interviewed with the production manager, and I had then got a new job. So I moved back to Cleveland very unexpectedly and worked at Great Lakes and Idaho Shakespeare Festival for 2 seasons. And then when I got back to New York, I just found that I had really found a love that I didn't know I had for stage management. I always loved performing, but I always wanted something a little more. I just didn't know what. And that kind of synthesized everything into one job. So I really was fortunate to be able to there's a cat, and I'm very excited about this cat, by the way. It was just really fun to kind of pivot and do something a little different that I really didn't know I was ever going to do. And now I've had the opportunity to do several Broadway tours and a lot of New York and regional work. And then production management kind of grew out of that. So it was a slightly different hat, but also similar in a lot of ways, being able to oversee the technical implementation of all the different departments on a show. So that was fun. It's been a unique and unexpected change, but one that I think I always meant to do. I just didn't know I wanted it.
Yeah, I think it's that having that organized mind, being able to be a stage manager, having all the details down pat, and especially at a higher level for a touring show. I'm sure that differs from other stage management that you've probably been involved in.
Very much so. Yeah, it's a different ball game, but it's funny. It's all the same. It's one of the best things I ever heard was a friend of mine who had done several Broadway shows, taught a master class for kids, and said, it's the same thing as the community theater or the high school theater or the youth theater that you grew up in. It's still held together by duct tape. It's still people running around backstage half the time not knowing where they're going. The difference is there's just millions of dollars behind it. But it's so true. It's all the same. We do all the same things, just bigger budgets and a little more stress because now it's people making their money based on it.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
All right. Kate, do we have you back?
I think so. Maybe.
All right. Yes. Perfect.
Hey, we did it. That was Maeve, by the way. Made a stroll here. But yeah, I mean, kind of going back to with what Cory was saying, we were kids and we were told we could be creative. It gave for me the opportunity to try directing, try playing in the orchestra, building sets, building props, helping with the box office, like finding that ability to try everything and figure out what you wanted to do and what you liked about theater. And it was amazing to be a part of that. And I remember, I don't know, Cory, you may not remember this, when I was in high school, my high school program funding in the arts was never solid and we needed to do a fundraiser. And I called Cory and he and I put together a evening of musical theater that, again, my mentor at my high school let us take that over and do something really cool and try something else. And it was just awesome. It was an awesome environment to get to do all of that in.
It was, especially working with a theater program for a high school in which like everyone was, it was great to work. Not that saying people at Cassidy weren't talented. That's not what I'm saying, but high school level, like people who were given awesome material of their own and could like, just thrive in like a concert environment. To be able to like direct and work with anyone who wants to be there is like, was amazing. And that was the start of it for me, really, when you asked me to do that. Yeah.
Was there anything that you tried throughout this process that you knew you're like, absolutely, I cannot do that, or nah, it didn't really mesh with me?
Of what process?
I guess when you were trying out all these different areas of theater, having your hand in directing or, whatever the case was, something that didn't mesh with you.
No.
Not really.
I'll try it all.
I gave up playing in the pit pretty hard because I wasn't very good at any of the instruments that I played. There were people who were much better. So that was about it.
Gotcha. We have a question for Sean. So, have you been on stage since assuming your new career?
The smart answer to that would be I walk on stage every day. That's a terrible answer. Little bits here and there. I guess it depends on stage. Meaning, I have done a few shows since I really transitioned to stage management. Very, very few. I've done some readings for friends that have written new works, done some concerts, but that's really it. I haven't really pursued auditioning in any way since maybe 2011, I would say. I still did a few auditions after I moved back to New York, but it was very, very few and far between. Someday maybe, but at the moment I'm really comfortable where I'm at, and we'll see if I ever decide to go back the other side.
Yeah, once you find your sweet spot, you know where to stay. So actually, let's talk about auditions a little bit here. So I'm sure you've all had interesting types of auditions that were not the same from person to person, director to director. So what audition tips do you have for young actors just trying to get started?
I guess have your material. That was the biggest thing for me, was putting together things I knew I would be comfortable doing if asked on the spot. Most of the time that doesn't necessarily happen, but it definitely does. But like knowing your stuff so that you can get through the nerves that you'll have no matter what you think, and just finding those pieces that you love enough to keep using over and over again so that you are comfortable with them forever.
I echo that too. I tell my students to be 125% prepared, because if you're only 100% prepared, the nerves and adrenaline will kick in, like they will at any time, and you'll then kind of be downgraded to 75% prepared. If you're 125% prepared, over prepared, and you could do it in any scenario, upside down, asleep, day, night, everything, completely memorized, like could do it under any circumstance. I feel like that extra 25%, once the nerves and adrenaline hit, will downgrade you to 100%, and you'll be good to go. But I feel like sometimes people they're like 80% prepared, so that when they enter the room and there's crazy stuff going on, and like the piano's in the wrong spot is before all of these weird things happen that kind of distract you from pulling off what you want to pull off. And I think preparation is it's key, and preparation and confidence is like, I mean, that's what I've learned in 25 years.
Oh, great point. Oh, Sean, did you have anything to add to that?
Sure. The other thing I would say, and I think that when performers go into the audition room in general, it's important to remember that that is their room at that time. And so, going off what Cory just said about being prepared, it's like walking into a job interview. It's like walking into it. I always say it's like walking into your opening night. You don't go into your opening night generally feeling underprepared. You generally go into opening night feeling like you've rehearsed the show, you know the material, you're ready to share it. And that just gives you an edge walking in the room when you remember it is your room, it is your time, it is your opening night. There is your audience, and this is your space, as opposed to you're not in their home. It's almost like they're coming to your home now because this is you putting yourself out there.
And also they want you to do well.
Right.
Like they want to find the perfect person for the role just as much as you want to be the perfect person for the role. So they're like on your side. They want to find the perfect person, So you just got to prove that you're it.
And I think, if you get the opportunity to sit in that room on the other side of that table, absolutely do it, because that's exactly the first thing you learn, is that they're not sitting there to judge you and be mad at you. They want to be done. They want to say, yep, that's the person. So they're not against you.
Right. Hopefully making it an easy process for everyone on all sides.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that works, that works in the professional world as well. I mean, they don't want to have 10 callbacks. And, I've been in this scenarios where it's just like days and days of your life, weeks of your life. I auditioned for Kinky Boots 10 times. And they don't want that to happen. They don't want that to happen. They want to be done. They want to find their person and like go home to their kids and not commute into New York. You know, so it's not just community theater in which they're rooting for you. It's always happening.
Mm-hmm. So Cory, when you are looking to audition for a new show, what intrigues you the most to make you actually decide to move forward with auditioning for a production?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite at the level where I can kind of pick and choose, you know, and there's only a handful of Broadway shows. There's 41 Broadway theaters at a time. So it's not like if I get an audition for a Broadway show, I'll say, that's not for me. But some things that would make me say it's not for me is if it's out of my range vocally. If I know that I can't go in there and like blow the notes out of the water, like I know some of the guys who are going in will. That's pretty much the only thing that I will say no to especially you mentioned a new show. If it's a new original show, I mean, on the rare instance that it's just a bad show and I don't want to be seen doing that material, which has happened a few times in the past 10 years. I mean, that's a thing, but it's more so I'm nervous about like if it's like a rock tenor situation or like a crazy opera thing, or you know, some on the occasion something that's like really classical that's not my strong suit. Sometimes I'll turn an audition down for that. That was the original question, right? Now I'm rethinking what the question was, but I'm now just thinking. Okay, yeah, that's probably what I would say no to. Yeah.
Yeah. So another question from Megan. So what were you all working on when the shutdown happened? Most recent projects.
Mm-hmm. Sean?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, Kinky Boots closed last year, so I have been auditioning after that closed on Broadway, and the day that we got the news that Broadway was shutting down, I booked this new TV show on the Stars Network that was supposed to film the following Monday, and on Friday, the Friday before, my agent was like, all right, so we're just gonna wait this out. We'll probably hear from them next week about what's gonna happen. And then, you know, once Monday hit and Tuesday hit, and I think that was like March 20th or something, and this looked to be real, it was just like radio silence from everyone because, you know, no one knows what's gonna happen, and all filming had to be shut down, and filming hasn't even opened back up in New York yet, and it's July. So I guess now I just wait until we get word from Stars and Mary J. Blige, who's the producer, and see when this will happen. But I started writing a musical like week one because I was like, this is going to be a while, and I can't act. You know, I've been coaching a lot through Zoom, audition coaching, audition technique, and do's and don'ts, and tips and tricks and all that stuff. But I'm writing a musical based on a documentary from 2010.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I was on tour. We were in Pittsburgh with the Broadway tour of the band's Visit. I had actually just joined. It was weird. I had joined in January, and then almost 2 months later to the day, we found out that we were going on hiatus for 2 weeks. And then it was, 3 months, and then it was 6 months, and then it was just kidding, 2021. So, which is not shocking to any of us. We were all ready for it, I think. But yeah, that was the tour. And thankfully we've been offered to return to our jobs in 2021, which I've been very, very thankful for. It's nice to know that when we're back, there's something waiting. So that's kind of the carrot at the end of the string that's keeping me going as I've been quarantining and trying to figure out how to pivot for the next few months.
I was not doing anything nearly as exciting as those things, but I just started rehearsals for a production of Parade. I was going to be playing Lucille for my second time, so I'm grateful that I've done the show a couple times now. But that was hard because we just got like that first week of rehearsal, but obviously that was canceled. I I work a day job. I work in for pet insurance, so I've been working from home, and I'm very grateful for that. So I haven't had to worry about like money, which is great. But the creative and artistic outlets are missing. I'm actually hoping to start collaborating with a couple people to come up with something maybe for Christmas that we could do, kind of taking a page out of my dad's book, and figure out what it would be able to be at this point. Obviously something probably digitally, and hopefully get something together, because I'm sure we all do. I miss what theater is in my life. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's almost as if we've had a giant pause button, but at the same time, I've appreciated seeing what other local and national theaters have been doing to support others during this time. So that kind of leads into another question that I have is how can people best support the arts during this time?
Go ahead, Cory.
How can people best support the arts during this time? I think a lot of it is through donations. If you're in the position to do that, give to your local theater, because they're suffering right now and will for a while. I think the model of social distancing in an actual theater is not practical. I think that a lot of theaters purposely put a certain amount of seats in their houses so that they will walk away with a business model in which they don't lose money. And I think for the majority of theaters in the US, if they took away 50% of those seats, I'm not sure it would make much sense to put on a show. So we either are giving, we're either giving money to your local theater, or to the Actors Fund is a great way to donate to an amazing organization with a background in theater. Watching stuff like this, where people are putting together a digital platform to stay involved. You can also, there's a lot of really awesome things coming out now to perfect your art too, that you don't have to leave your house to do. I think a lot of things that have popped up that we may not have considered could be used when we weren't in quarantine, like different master classes and coaches and stuff like that. So you could work on maybe something that was that you weren't doing great with back in when we were free to go outside. So say you wanted to hit a high A, and you never really got the chance to really work on it. Now's a good time to get with a voice teacher through the internet and work on it, so that when we're back, you can use that to your advantage. It's in some ways there. Some would say that it's a blessing that we have this time to kind of contemplate and figure out how to start fresh, whether that's a talent or a skill or a job or something like that. So yeah.
Absolutely. As a career advisor, I 100% agree with exactly what Cory said.
Oh, then maybe I should be a career advisor.
There you go. Pivot.
Maybe that's what I should do
advising.
at this time. You got me thinking.
There you go.
And I would add to that there's kind of two things I've been telling everyone they could really do to help support artists, which number one is no matter what level your artist friends are, it doesn't matter if they're living in New York, it doesn't matter if they're living in Cleveland, it doesn't matter if they're living in Spokane, Washington. You can call, check in on them, talk to them, because I don't know an artist that's not a social being. And isolation is probably one of the hardest things, and feeling like we don't get that interaction with people. So just continually don't forget that people that are naturally social, it's not just artists, but people that are very social are having a harder time feeling isolated right now. So that's number one. I always tell people, check in, keep in touch. And the second thing to consider is that the faction of the industry in New York or across the country that makes a living doing this has to completely shift what they're doing now. This wasn't a career move laterally. There is no lateral move in our industry. The entire live entertainment industry right now is predicated on crowds of people. So without that being allowed and safe, the entire industry really is on pause. So we're all looking for what's the next career thing. Many of us haven't done something outside of the arts in ever, perhaps. Or if we have, it's been 20 years.
Ever. I was waiting for that.
Ever. There it is.
Ever.
I worked in a restaurant when I was 18, but even restaurants aren't open in a lot of states. So that's not even a move you can make necessarily. So I would say one thing you really can do is, with the July 25th deadline of the pandemic unemployment compensation coming up, write your senators, write your Congress people, because it is not, by no means are artists looking for a handout, but we're literally pivoting our entire lives right now and having to find new careers or anything just to tide us over and still be able to live and raise families. And so anything you can do to help legislation for industries like ours that are affected would be very, very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So do what you can to support the legislation so that there's an industry to come back to when we can. And wear a mask. Just put some fabric over your face, please.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing I'll say about the Actors Fund for those watching and maybe aren't as familiar with it. It's not just an actor who will be supported by these things. It's everyone in the business. So, take that into consideration, that it's
actually rarely an actor who's benefiting from the Actors Fund, but yeah.
But a lot of people can benefit from the thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap up with a couple more questions, and then if anyone else has comments in our comments section. But what, ideally, when we get to go back and things open and we get to enjoy live theater again, what is a show or a role that you would be really excited to have? Dream roles, dream shows.
I guess mine would be in the Book of Mormon, or actually watching Hamilton the other day. I love to audition for King George. I think that's a thing. That would be fun to do.
Yes.
I don't know. I've been very lucky. I mean, when I lived in New York, I auditioned a lot. I did a couple of things. It just wasn't the right time for me to be there. But locally, I've gotten to do a lot, and I've gotten to play the roles that I've wanted to play for the most part. The Parade, the show that I was working on, Lucille is definitely a dream role. And like I say, I've been lucky enough to already play her. But I would love to be able to do that again. I think it's still an important piece, unfortunately. It's still very relevant. And I'd love to see that get done again.
Absolutely.
I would love
was that
to play
West Theater, Kate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where was the first time you did it, Kate? I know I remember seeing about it, but I didn't get to see the production.
French Creek out in Avon.
That's right. I just remember you did it. I would very much like to play the role of Cory Mach in Cassidy Theater, the musical. But I was told I'm not a Cory Mach type, so
let's write it.
Let's do it. It's happening.
Yes, add that to your list of shows for the future.
I can submit many pictures from our childhood for a slideshow in the background. So.
Perfect.
Oh
there needs to be projections. That's very important.
Are there any, so Kate, since you brought that up, a lot of different pictures, I'm sure there are a lot of other memories that you guys have from shows there. Is there one one show in particular that was your favorite that you got to work on at Cassidy?
Honestly, I don't think I could pick one. Like I say, I was very lucky that I got to do a lot of shows with both of my parents, which you would think wouldn't be fun, but was very fun. And, you know, I made lifelong friendships there in everything that we did, you know, like Cory, just going from show to show to show, back to back. That's where we spent our time. And it's something you can't replace. And I honestly don't think I could pick a favorite show. Yeah.
But I do love the fact, and this is something we've seen at Cassidy many, many times, that families do get to be in shows together. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. I think the opportunity getting to direct Into the Woods was a highlight for me for sure. Just because it was one of my favorite shows and the cast was just amazing. And it was just a great team of people. And like, I got to design the set, which I like never thought I'd get to do something like that as a teenager, you know? So yeah, I think that was probably my favorite moment.
I think mine is, just because I don't have as much experience there, mine's is kind of a funny anecdote, was during Anything Goes, which is one of the main stage shows. Our pianist, we had a 6-piece orchestra. Our pianist, who was crucial to the entire thing, had a death in the family, unfortunately, and it was rather unexpected. And he called me about 3 hours before the show and said he couldn't come in to the show that day. So I made a bunch of frantic phone calls and left voicemails for people that I knew who could sight read this show, who were incredible musicians, offered to basically pay them more than I was making just so they would come in for the day. And I didn't get any return phone calls. And so I remember sitting at the piano going, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I had never actually played the score. I'd only conducted it. Someone else played in all the rehearsals. So I went, well, this is going to be a disaster, but here we go. And about 30 seconds before the downbeat, this tall man whose name I do not remember, who was probably about 70 years old, he was a professor at University of Akron in their jazz program, walks in and goes, is Sean here? And I said, yes. He goes, hi, I heard that you needed a pianist for today. I got your voicemail, but you weren't answering your phone. So I just came up to make sure that it was covered. And he ended up playing the show for us that day. And I wish I remembered his name, but he was on faculty at the University of Akron. That's the one thing I remember. And he played the show. I think he had the wrong number for me because I had no missed calls at all. So I'm like, I don't know who you were calling, but this dude showed up and he played the show for us, and it was lovely. So that's my
champion.
Weirdest Cassidy memory, but he knew our drummer really well, thankfully. So they were old buddies and they chatted for a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That is the magic of theater right there. It all comes together. One other question someone asked in the chat is Sean, you just named yours, but name a funny thing or a disaster that sticks out in your memory. So mishaps. And this could be a Cassidy or in any other roles that you've had.
I can name a lot. I've fallen on that stage more than I'd care to admit. I remember during Children of Eden, the beginning of Act 2, I was playing Mama Noah. My friend Andrew was playing Noah at that time for that act. And like the opening of the act is the ensemble's on stage and they're singing, and we're like, we know when we come out. And we were sitting in the green room up against the wall to the box office, and we heard our cue, which was, oh, Noah, you go up. And we were not on stage. And we ran around the side doors. You could see the scrim flap in the breeze. And we made it by the time we had to sing. But it was not an easy way to get around if you've ever been backstage at Cassidy. But we didn't fall during that one. I'll give us that. So
I remember my dog played Sandy when we were in Annie, and he ran into the audience, like completely up the aisle. But we got him back.
Breaking that fourth wall.
Yeah.
Yes. Always something when you're working with live animals.
The best.
He was a good Sandy. He played Sandy for me when I directed it.
Oh yeah, he did it twice.
Yeah.
He was asked back.
Reprised his
He's a
role.
celebrity. Look at that. Celebrity dog.
Absolutely.
Very nice. All right. So our time is wrapping up here. So I want to thank the three of you again for taking the time out of your day to be with us and with everyone else who's watching along in this live stream. Make sure to tune in next week as well, 3 p.m. for more insanity and interesting conversations about live theater. So thank you again. And if you enjoyed listening to Kate and Sean and Cory, consider making a donation to Cassidy Theater or any of the wonderful organizations that we made mention of in this video. So we hope that you enjoy the rest of your 4th of July weekend. And otherwise, I thank you all and have a good evening.
Hi, Mom. I'll call you later.
Bye.